The following program is a Creative Magic Network production. You're listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivey, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. People often say, if Max can do it, then why can't I? Here's Max Ivey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I am really excited today for a couple of reasons. First, welcome to What's Your Excuse? I'm Max Ivey, internationally known as the Blind Blogger, and today we have a very exciting guest. I'm happy to have her on, but the other thing I'm really excited about is my brother, who had a heart attack about 2 weeks ago, was allowed to come home from the hospital last night. He seems to be in pretty good health. They do have some other stuff they have to address before he's completely healthy, but he's so much better off than he was when they were carrying him out of the Walmart on an ambulance. So very happy and blessed that he is on with us again. And then today my guest is, let me see if I can say this right, because I'm probably going to say it wrong at least once. Iolande V, otherwise known as Dr. Ande. And she's kind of like me. She's done a lot of stuff and taken advantage of a lot of opportunities and started some of this stuff herself. In 2006, she got into podcasting with a show called WIBWOB on Blog Talk Radio, which is Women in Business, Women on Business. And she did that show for a while, and then she co-hosted some other podcasts before. In 2008, when the stock market and real estate market crashed, there were a lot of people looking for work and looking to start their own businesses. So she started two shows, Tech Talk to help people looking for work, and Biz something. I'll get it right later. For people wanting to start a new business or wanting to start something on the side. And then in 2014, she switched over to terrestrial radio. She's over on KUBU in Sacramento, California. That's 96.5 FM. And she does a weekly show over there. She's a publisher, multiple times author. She's written over 20 books, collaborated on 4 more. And one thing that's really impressive to me, because I know how hard poetry is, she just released an audiobook of poems. So before I kill all my time introducing her, let's say hello to Dr. Ande. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, now that I've made it through the introduction and I can just talk to you, I'm fine.
Okay.
All right. Now I got the stressful part. Now that I got the stressful part over, where I have to think if I remembered it all right or not, and then I can just talk to my friend and have a conversation, then the world is good. So, did I leave anything out or get anything significantly wrong?
Well, the show used to be called Tips and Tactics, the one for job seekers. And, no, everything else is pretty good. I did start a nonprofit this year.
Oh, yeah. And that's a really cool thing you're doing to help minority and underrepresented authors get published and also find out about the whole literary business.
Right. That's my latest endeavor.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to do first, if it's okay, is I'd like to go back to before you started your first podcast and find out what it is about Dr. Ande that made you so prolific, that made you the kind of person that goes out and starts podcasts and radio shows and foundations.
Okay. I'm a ham. that would be it. That covers it. I actually started out I've been performing since I was little. And in high school, I did opera. Used to perform on stage. And then after that, I did the modeling thing for a while, did the acting thing. And then I always preferred anything to do with music. Cause honestly, I always wanted to be Wolfman Jack, truth be known.
Well, he was definitely an original character who was not only was a performer and was introduced a lot of Americans to some of the great music of our time for the first time. Yep.
I always loved his style, and he was just so cool. And that voice, it didn't have the voice, but I always picture myself sitting in a little disc jockey booth, all the bobs and microphones everywhere. I always thought that was so cool.
Yeah, of course, when Wolfman Jack was getting started, he was broadcasting from a little station in Mexico, so I'm not even sure he had knobs or dials down there.
Nope. All he needed was a microphone, though, and the rest was history.
Yeah, that's the way some people are. They're so much bigger than life that they really don't need a lot of stuff for them to impact you, for them to do their thing.
Nope. No, they don't. And so I heard about podcasting. I thought, oh, let's try it out. What can I talk about? No, talk about business. Because at that time I was working at Chevron and had nothing else doing, so I talked about business.
Well, since you're no longer with Chevron, and it doesn't sound like you were with them for very long, I'm guessing that's not a big part of your story. So you went from talking about business to helping people who were starting their own businesses, and then now you've got the weekly radio show. And what is the name of the show?
It is the Iolande Argent show, and it's on Wednesdays from 8 to 10 a.m. And actually, now I promote books. True story. Every time I got a guest on for the Biz Talk radio podcast, they all had books. It seemed like everybody I knew in business had a book. And we would always end up talking about their books. So I thought, well, why not launch a podcast, which at that time was Ivey Writes. We'll talk about books. And we're still talking about books. That was like 7 years ago. We're still talking about books. And that's generally what I do now. I talk about finance and I talk about books. So in my 2-hour segment.
Yeah, I recently got the opportunity to talk to you about books and finance and copyrights and publishing and self-publishing and so many other topics.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all haven't gotten a chance to check it out yet, eventually Dr. Ande is going to post our virtual summit on writing and publishing. And as part of that thing, we had a panel discussion, which I think officially ran 2 hours. But when I finally went to bed, it was 5 hours, and I understand that y'all didn't go to bed till like 9 o'clock the next morning. So
right.
Apparently, that's what happens when you get a bunch of writers in the room who all have similar experiences or things in common, and you can just let it flow and talk for hours.
That's true. It was true. It was, as far as I know, the first virtual self-publishing summit hosted, and got a whole bunch of wonderful guests such as yourself. And that's what we did. We imparted information and resources onto the listeners and viewers, because this was actually visual, about, the world of the literary industry.
Yeah, and it's no longer does it just seem like everybody has a book. Everybody does have a book. If they don't have one, they've got a story. They just haven't gotten the guts to tell it yet, or somebody has done something to make them afraid to tell their story. But everybody has got a book in them, and it's great that your show is about books, because it looks like that's going to be a major vehicle for profit and for creating credibility for coaches and people like that for a long time to come. Or at least that's what it seems like to me.
Absolutely. And that's one of the first things we tell people. Even if you're a job seeker, you need to write a book. It is such a powerful tool, and it's a great business card. Because, what are you going to tell an employee? We can't wait, you wrote a book. Yeah, because a book says that you know what you're talking about, and you're willing to put it down on paper or ebook form and back it up.
Yeah, I still get a kick out of the reactions I get from people when I just happen to have a copy of my book on me, which, by the way, if you're an author, always happen to have a copy of your book on you, whether you promote it or not, because when people see that book in person, when they can put their hands on it, a lot of times they will, like you said, they'll change their opinion of you, and they may even ask you how much the book costs.
Absolutely.
And some of my best Facebook posts have been when somebody that I like or respect, like one of my doctors a while back, I showed him the book. He's like, well, don't just autograph it for me. Let's take a picture. And we took a picture and put that on Instagram and Facebook. And it was one of my one of my most reposted posts that I've had in a long time, and it's just me and my doctor standing there holding a copy of the book. But
that is
something about the printed copy of the book really seems to make an even better statement than if you can, if you have the link to your ebook in your resume or something.
It's true. It's very true, because we get so many links to everything. How often do you really click on them to go through the trouble of reading something somebody else has sent you, even if it's free?
Yeah, even if it's free, even if they tell you how much it should cost you and it's free, you still have just so many links coming at you. And the other thing I tell authors is there is no better feeling than holding your book in your hands for the first time.
That's true.
Just be me.
No, it is. People don't realize just how much texture matters. And when you hold an actual tangible item, such as a book, that solidifies it right there. Words on a page or on a screen, that's fine. No biggie. But when you actually can hold that bad boy in your hand, oh yeah, that's it right there. That's the feeling.
Yeah, it is. Well, before I continue, I got to remember that we do this show on the Creative Magic Network. You can connect with us over at frederickbye.com. That's FREDERICBYE.com. There's also the Creative Magic Store, where he has copies of the books of the hosts and some of the guests, including copies of my books, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. And It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, an easy-to-follow guide to weight loss success. And hopefully soon the audio version of my first book will be up there too. So back to my friend, Dr. Ande, who, you did host that was your second virtual summit, didn't you do another one featuring women, inspirational or motivational women as well?
Yes, we did one over Labor Day weekend last year for the virtual. It was a virtual success summit for women. And that was basically anything and everything to do with business, starting one, running one, how to manage business and family, all geared towards helping women, business owners.
Yeah, I hate to admit this because it's going to make me sound bad, but one of the things I'm envious of is all the retreats, workshops, face-to-face meeting, networking events that are just for women. I understand why they're necessary, but it's still, I'm like, I would like to meet them people too. But I understand the need for it, but I feel like it's just one of those things. I have to admit that I am a bit jealous that there are all of these events now for women to network with other women. And a lot of those people would be my ideal clients as well. So it's a little more difficult for us men sometimes nowadays, at least.
Well, the funny part is when we do summits and conferences for women, men automatically think that, that means we can't apply to be speakers at them or something like that. And it doesn't. As long as you have a product that can help a woman, no matter what, we're talking being an author or whether they're opening a side gig, there is nothing that says you cannot ask to speak at that event. And we do actually have men that do speak at the Women's Summit. We had 4 of them, actually. So see, you can always ask. It's about the spreading of the information more so than it's about, just keeping it one gender versus another gender.
Well, that's an important point and a good reminder for me. It goes along with something my friend Michael Babcock keeps telling me, and that is that when you assume about the market that you're looking into or that you're after, a lot of times you make some bad decisions, because one of the things he's had to convince me to get rid of is my belief that the visually impaired community and the disabled community in general are people who don't have income. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And not only do they have income, but they're very loyal and willing to overpay for products and services if they feel the producer of that product or service is going out of their way to make it accessible to them. So just another example with your Women's Summit, where men assume that they're not welcome, but if they have something important to say, something that will help move the women forward, then they are welcome to put their names in there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you want, we have one coming up again this year. It'll be the second one, and it starts on August 31st. So there you go.
There I go. Well, me, I hardly ever say no if somebody's going to go, come on, show up. And I would love to be part of your summit. I really enjoyed doing the virtual publishing summit. And I was happy with that, considering it was my first formal presentation anywhere where it wasn't an interview format. Your co-host did ask me a few questions in the beginning, but then she let me run with the rest of the time. And so it's one of those things that I'm very grateful for you to give me the opportunity to do something for the first time like that.
No, you're very welcome. I'm glad you applied, actually.
And well, the longer you know me, the more you're going to realize my problem isn't applying or saying yes. My problem is learning how to say no or to pass on things.
Well, it's all about, in all honesty, you never really know where a good lead comes from, because I have to remind people, even with the summit, let's say, you're an author yourself. And if you go to a book fair, that's great, but your competition are a whole bunch of other booksellers. So how much chance do you think you're going to have of making a sale? But let's say you have your book about the chips. It's the bag, not the chips. Let's say we put you at a cooking, one of those things. What do we call them? Where everybody goes out and they've got all the different
home food expo or whatever.
Yeah,
they call those
one
things.
of those. If we put you there and we get you some set up with your books, people are walking through and then they'll stop and go, "Wait, what's this?" Because, honestly, where are you going to be more successful selling a book? Whether it's a murder mystery that involves a chef, or whether it's you who's got like a little, book there on how to live a more nutritious life, even though you can have some cookies. You know what I'm saying? Where else would you find more people? You're going to find more people that are going to be open to that there, because one, you stand out. It's memorable. And two, you have a book that says they can eat cookies and still manage to maintain healthy weight. That's a big thing, especially with women. We have cookies. We like cookies. We bake cookies.
Yeah, and one of the biggest problems with baking cookies is every single recipe says if you can double it, if you want to, you can double it and have this many cookies. Mm-hmm. And I often think one of the best things somebody could do would be if they went back through all the recipe boxes and swapped that second part out for, here's how you split it so you have half as many cookies.
That's probably a good idea. You got to wonder, that might be a really good idea for a recipe book. How to make half. Or better yet, how to make them for single people. Because, all of those were made for back in the nuclear age. So if you think about it, when you had a family of 4, that's one thing. But if it's just you or you and a significant other, that's only 2. So you're right. You only need half.
Well, even with, think about it, even with a family of 4, do you really need 36 or 48 cookies?
Have you actually ever gotten 48 cookies out of one of those recipes? Seriously.
Well, in my family, we start eating them before we're finished making them. So there's really no way to know for sure.
Okay. See, that's usually it. Yeah. Then that's where that whole cookie dough thing came from. Yeah. So that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So we only manage it in our house because we use what the manufacturer give us. We take one bag of cookie dough and split it 4 ways. We've got about 5 cookies apiece if we're lucky. So
yeah, there you go.
But I appreciate what to get back to your point. The point is you want to be somewhere where you can stand out, where you'll be memorable. And if most men assume that they aren't welcome to present at an all women's event, then if I do have something to say and I put my name out and I get accepted, I am going to stand out a little there. So that's another really good point about this whole deal.
Yeah. Actually, true story. You remember the co-star that interviewed you. When we did the Women's Summit, there was a wonderful gentleman there who is a physical ed instructor. Now, he's down in Mexico. And the general thinking is you're going to start talking about dieting, and that's not really supportive, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up interviewing him. Now, talk about preconceived notions. So they went to interview another person. Well, the person they interviewed, they didn't really have an interest in the topic, and they tuned into what we were over there doing, laughing and joking. And they're like, well, what are y'all over here talking about? Water. That was it. We were talking about water and the benefits of drinking water and how it clears up your skin and how it gives you more energy. And if you really want to lose weight, how much extra water you need to have a day to, cleanse. And they're like, that's what you guys were over there talking. Yes. We spent an entire time talking about the benefits of drinking water, and that was it. And then he was telling me about, how he had created some exercises one can do in the bathroom, whether you're traveling or if you're stuck at work and, just need to get some really quick exercise in. And they're like, you guys sound like you had way more fun than we did. I'm like, yep, but see, that's what happens with those preconceived notions.
Yeah, that is what happens with them. I tell you, it was a lot of fun doing the summit. I'm looking forward to doing another one with you someday. But before I run out of time, which I do all the time on this show, I want to hear about your cruise because I've had a couple people who have asked me about doing a cruise, and I've looked into it myself, and I'm thinking that sounds like a really cool way to do a retreat or a summit, but I don't know anybody who's actually done one, so I really would like you to tell people what you have planned and when it's going to happen, and maybe if you've got a landing page for it already, go ahead and mention that too.
Okay, well, we're talking in the 50/50 cruise. Basically, it is a way to get people together to actually host workshops on how to not only start a business, but from the ground up, we walk you through everything, including creating your first business plan, how to get started, how to find clients, how to market. This is open to men or women. And then we also have a section of workshops that is specifically for authors as well, because they need to learn not only how to write a book, but how to find all that, that fun, intricate stuff like getting a really good editor and proofreading. And during those workshops, we offer those services for the writers. So there'll actually be a combination because a lot of, like I said, part of the business owners, we're going to teach them how to write books as well to use as calling cards. And it goes for 15 days. It'll start in San Francisco and goes to the islands of Hawaii, because I think it nests at 4 of them. And then you can get off and have shore cruises, etc., have luau's and all that good stuff. And then on the way back, we come into Ensenada for a day, and people can go off and have free time and check out the beautiful sights of Ensenada, Mexico. And then we just cruise back to San Francisco. And it takes 15 days.
Right. Well, what I have found out about those cruises is generally on cruises, there are a lot of what they call travel or in motion days or something like that. Mm-hmm. And those are generally the days that you have workshops and seminars on, because those are days where there isn't an off boat or off ship activity available to people.
Absolutely. It takes 3 days to go from San Francisco to Hawaii on the water. So those are the 3 days that you'll be indulging in workshops, and you won't be in them all day. That's the thing. You'll be in them for a little time, and then there's most cruise ships, they have everything on them from casinos to movie theaters now. So there will be other stuff for people to do, but in the meantime, while you're there, you will be indulging in these hands-on ground, nuts and bolts workshops for 3 days. And you get your little T-shirts to be seen in, and all the little crew gear that we give you for the workshops. And the test page for that will be going up shortly, but they can always visit my page if they have any questions about it over at Iolande argentcoaching.com. So there should be one up there for that.
Right. And Frederick, my co-host, for y'all that are worried about the spelling of the website, it will be in the link from the show when the show goes live on Thursday. So we'll make it really easy for y'all to find her website, because she is involved in so many great projects that can help authors, business people, or those of you who are still thinking about starting a business or writing that book. So just head over to frederickby.com to check out when you click the link for the show, there'll be a link there to take you to her website and her Twitter feed and all of that good stuff. So, but that sounds really exciting. I'm hoping at some point during the year. Well, I would like to go, but at some point during the year, I'm hoping I can pick your brain and find out exactly how daunting a process it is, because I hear it takes about a year to 18 months to plan something like that.
Yes, it does. But you just got to get with the right cruise ship, and because where you're down, where you are, you have cruises that leave out of where you're from. You're down in Texas, aren't you?
Yeah, but the problem with that is the cruises that go out of Texas, most of them go to some part of the Caribbean, and there are a lot of people who are still a little hesitant about going where the Zika is.
That's very true. That's very true.
So, you're going to see, I think you may even see a little bit of movement in the cruise industry to where there may not be so many cruises going out of Houston and Galveston, because of the places that are, most easily accessed from here are places that have the Zika. So you may see some of the cruise lines moving some of their ships to the West Coast, or, maybe they will try to do more runs to Europe. I don't know how it'll all work out for them. Thankfully, it's not my problem. But
no, that's true. But there's always that fun adventure. Hey, let's cruise. Like old school, they did used to cruise out of New York over to Cherbourg, France. Yeah. So there you go. Hey.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I tell you, it seems like every time I talk to you, I learn something new from you, and I feel energized being around you. I wish we lived somewhere where I could hang out with you about once a month or so, but
yeah, that would be great.
So what are some of the things that have helped you through the course of your business life when you've had the struggles, when the technology hasn't worked, or when the clients were difficult, or there were bills to pay that maybe there wasn't money to pay them? What are some of the techniques you've used to keep yourself moving forward, or keep yourself from getting to that overwhelmed point that causes a lot of people to quit?
Well, actually, I rely heavily on calendaring to keep workflow. Make a system of workflow, and then I write down 5 goals, personal goals that I have to do every day, and 5 business goals. Because just staying busy is not the same as being productive, as you well know. So I utilize that. And then when it comes to trying to find that little extra money, that's when I usually host a workshop of some nature. And if I don't charge for the workshop, that means I guarantee you there's going to be something for sale there. Whether it's going to be the workbook, or one of the books, or something will be for sale there. That will that'll bring value to the people who come to the workshop.
Right. Now, when you say calendar, do you mean an actual print paper calendar, or do you use a particular calendar app?
Actually, whichever you are more comfortable with. One of the ladies I do Toastmasters with, she had an interesting calendar that she used to use, in the fact that at the top it goes by weeks, so it'll show all 7 days of the week. And then on the side, on the left-hand margin, it has the time of day. So for each area, you can write something in. And I thought, now that's a really great idea for a calendar, because that way you can always see what it is you're supposed to be doing during a specific time. And I thought, I like that. I need to make one of those up. But whether you're using a paper calendar that helps you, whether you're using, I use Trello online, and it's also an app. I use that one to also help with calendaring. And don't forget, there is always Google, and it's Google's free, and Google is great because it syncs with my phone. And so for those little moments when it'll pop up and say, oh yeah, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah, for me, I find that the one thing that makes the big difference is actually taking the time to write in the stuff, and it seems like I remember it better if in a plain text document than I do if I use one of the apps, because it's just the process of writing all the information down and putting it in the order that will make sense when I need to look at it again. Mm-hmm. And then for me, I usually go through the calendar before I go to sleep, just in case there's something I'm supposed to be doing at 7:30 the next morning.
That's a good practice. You should always do that, because I tell you, your brain, you're so overwhelmed, And you may think, oh, this should be going on at 10 and find out it's going on at 9. And you're like, ah. So, yes, you should always do that the night before, really.
Yeah, I did that I didn't do that in New York City. And on the day I did my TV interview, I got a call from a woman who was expecting me to be on radio with her at the exact same time.
Oh, wow. How did that work out?
It worked out. We had a nice 5-minute talk. She agreed to call me back on Thursday, and we had a great interview.
Oh, that's good. That is really good.
Yeah.
How was your trip to New York, by the way?
It was amazing. I came back with the idea that for the most part, New York and New Yorkers are as good as or better than most Texans.
Mm-hmm.
And that pains me to have to admit that, because I grew up in Texas during a time when we were known as the friendliest place in the country, where where we would always have a handshake or a hug or tell you howdy and, ask you to come to dinner, kind of is the way I remember it. Whether that's true or not, that's the way I remember it. And to spend 2 weeks in New York City and have people, have a stranger buy me breakfast, have a cabbie try to give me his umbrella, have 2 strangers from the UK put me on a pedal cab when we couldn't figure out how to get me out of Rockefeller Center. And that's just 3 right off the top of my head that happened while I was there. I'm blind. Yeah, I'm 6'4" and 260. I have a Texas accent. I've got the cane, but I just got the sense that for the most part, New Yorkers are better than people think they are.
Told you. That was part of our conversation. Yeah, that was it. I told you, if you get there, you will find out, especially during that time of the year, they go all out, and they are some of the most nice and generous people you will meet.
Yeah, and I'm glad you reminded me of that, because you're one of the few people who wasn't preaching gloom and doom and trying to talk me out of going. So thank you for being one of the people who was on the positive side and was encouraging me to go, because up until I actually left town, there weren't a lot of voices that were saying, go for it, that you have to do this. There were a lot more saying, are you sure there isn't some way you can get out of it, or somebody who can go with you?
I mean, honestly, I mean, taking somebody else with you, that's one thing, having a good travel companion. But at the end of the day, that is an experience that, you may only get to do once. And that's, it's a worthwhile experience. So I definitely will thumbs up on going to visit New York anytime during this holiday season. Visit New York. I would tell you to visit New York during the summer, but you're going to die of heat stroke. Yes. Okay.
Their weather's just, their weather is just like ours. So it probably wouldn't bother me to be there in June or July or August, because, we've got 90 plus and 75 plus humidity here during most of the summer.
That is very true. I forgot. Yeah, you get that humidity thing. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Counting the humidity, being there might actually feel comfortable compared to Houston. While I was there, people complained that I brought the rain with me, and I told them, okay, if you're going to blame me for the rain, you have to thank me for the warmer temperatures, because it was in the 50s most of the time I was there, and we only had one really, really cold day, and that was New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day it got into the low 20s. Nice,
though. That's really nice. Did you get snow?
No, there was no snow. There was when I was inside having dinner before going to see Wicked. Mm-hmm. And there was some snow falling outside, but by the time I finished what I was eating, the snow was over.
Oh, man. Oh, come on. Right?
That's like a thing. They had snow before I got there, and they had snow after I left, but they didn't have no snow while I was there.
Oh, okay. Well, I told you about I just came back from Vegas, and we had snow. The one thing I never was expecting to ever see in Las Vegas is a ski slope and snow. So, yes, we had snow. Well, it was great to me, but it wasn't so great for the nice people who came out, to the West Coast thinking, we came out, it was hot. It's like, yeah, usually, except for this time. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was nice.
And, for those people who haven't accepted it yet, y'all can just get used to it. The weather is going to be crazy from now on. It's not going to go back to what people think it should be.
No, it's definitely So if you learn to ski, go with it.
when you get on a train in Houston, Texas, on the train in New York City on Thursday, and it's warmer in New York City than it was when you left Houston, Texas, you know that things is not right in the world.
That's true. That is very true. Especially if you go in December, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Hot weather in New York in December is scary. Yeah, that's just scary.
Yeah. One of the things about this show, Dr. Ande, is we are still trying to figure out exactly how the blind guy does everything. So we work it out as we go. And I just like to make sure I don't forget to give the guest an opportunity to mention their website and stuff before I finish. So okay. That's why I was asking what the time was like. So, could you mention some of your? I know you've written like 20 books. Can you mention what one of your favorites of them and what it's about? Or if you're working on a new book, maybe you could tell the listeners something about that.
Okay, my favorite book was The Temporary Employee's Handbook, A Guide to Success, which came out back in 2008. And I love that book because it tells people all employees are temporary. At the end of the day, all of your employment is temporary until you either A, get laid off, B, get promoted to a different position, or your company gets bought out and you end up either absorbed or you start your own company. So it basically goes through how to interview an employer while you're working there from the inside out and collecting a paycheck working as a temporary employee. So I love that one. That was my favorite.
And then tell us something about the poetry. That has to be just totally outside your comfort zone to write a book and record the audio of poetry. Tell me about that book.
Actually, no, I started out with poetry. I actually went in reverse. I started out in writing nonfiction. Believe it or not, in high school, I wrote romances. Okay. Yeah, I did. I actually wrote romance novels for a company that's now since been bought out. So I did romance novels for them under a pen name, and then I turned right around and I used to write poetry. I've been writing poetry since I was a kid, so that was just going home again. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. I will say the one thing I did notice that most of my poetry is dark. It's very dark. And then I had to remember that most of my writing is geared around, I'm a mystery freak. So I love, the whole mystery. I love science fiction, dark fantasy lore, that kind of thing. So of course it would stand to reason that my poetry is dark. But I still enjoy it. I still keep my hand in, and I've won a couple of awards for my poetry in the past. So just going back and working with other people who wanted to create books of poetry was fun.
Well, the good thing about nowadays is that people don't all expect poetry to be uplifting and positive. They don't expect it to all be complicated. So in today's market, a book of dark poetry, who knows, might actually be a selling point.
That's true.
In today's markets.
Never thought of that. I might actually have to create a compilation of dark poetry and see how that works out. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, you think about all the people that are into the whole zombie or vampire culture, all the goth teenagers out there in the country.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a big market for dark poetry right now. And when you consider the current political climate now, it seems to have gotten a lot of people riled up one way or the other.
True.
It might even be more so than what I was thinking of when I started making that point.
That's true. You're right. I will definitely have to look into that. I never even thought of that before. See, you learned something. So definitely.
Well, I'll be interested to see if it turns out that it's something that needs to be done. Sometimes I have lots of ideas and I don't generally rein many of them in, but that doesn't mean they're all good ones.
You never know. It may not be a good one for you to test out, but you throw it out there and somebody else, I kid you not, somebody else can actually take it and run with it. And that's the funny part about casting a net, as they say. You do not know what's coming back to you in the net because it may not be beneficial for you, but something you have learned or, passed by is always beneficial to somebody else.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a family of carnival owners, and one of the things my dad had real trouble instilling in us boys was the idea that there's no way for you to know what person walking down the midway is willing or going to spend money on your booth, and that all you can really do is you can ask every one of them if they want to play or not, or if they want to buy what you got to sell. So, but there's really no way to know. He said in my years, I've seen guys in 3-piece suits that wouldn't give you the first dollar, and I've seen a guy with 5 kids who wouldn't leave till every one of them had a teddy bear. So that's right. And that's one of those things that applies to just about any other kind of businesses. Like you just said, we have no way of knowing what opportunities, what people are going to come back to us, or maybe introduce us to somebody we needed to meet without us ever even knowing they did it. Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's do the important stuff here. Mention the website again and your radio station, and if they have a website, go ahead and give that to them so they can be sure to listen to your show every week.
Okay. Well, you can find me at iolandeargentcoaching.com. That's IOLANDEARGENT coaching, all one word.com. And then on Wednesdays, you can listen to KUBU at 96.5 FM if you're in the Sacramento or Northern California area. And if you're looking to hear the radio show online, I invite you to go over to accesssacramento.org and just click on The Voice, and that will be us. And I'm there on Wednesdays from 8 to 10 a.m.
All right. Well, I am very happy that you were able to come on the show, and that the Skype update went away, so you were able to. The technology didn't keep us from having our talk today. So, really appreciate you being here with me.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, I look forward to lots more great stuff out of you. I know you've probably got 10 ideas for every one that you do something with, and the ones you've done something with have all been amazing.
Thank you much. I'm working that out.
All righty. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dr. Ande, and y'all know how to get a hold of her. I think at this point I'll say goodbye, and me and Fred will talk a few minutes about what we learned today.
Okay. And thank you much. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Okay. So, Frederick, what did you learn today?
You know what? Fascinating interview. You know what I learned? I like how she talked about her book, The Temporary Employee. It's so true. I never saw it that way though, but it's true, and I think I'm going to pick up that book. I'm going to check it out because I think we don't really realize it, because the usual traditional mindset is you get a high paying job or whatever, you get a job, you need a job, and that's true. It's temporary. It's always temporary. And I think I don't know. I think it can be heart wrenching for some people to hear that they're temporary.
Yeah.
They're just a pawn in their game, basically. And if you're no longer useful, well, you know what? You need to move on, Yeah,
and I think that's been one of the biggest changes in our culture in America since the economy crashed in 2007, 2008. Is so many people who grew up thinking they were going to have a job for life or for most of their life found out that nothing is guaranteed anymore. That even though your father and grandfather and great grandfather may have worked for the same company, that doesn't mean that you will be able to enjoy that kind of an employment life as well. And I think, a while back I told somebody that it seems like only the police, fire, ambulance, and medical professions are immune from unemployment and from downsizing. And then here in Houston, we had a hospital decide that several hundred of their people are no longer needed. So,
Wow.
That book of hers...
Really?
The book of, really. That book of hers does make a great point that very few of us are permanent employees. And even if you're in a company that is a responsible company, like she said, as you go from one job to the next, you have to realize your skills at each job are going to be totally different. So it is just like being a temporary worker, even if you're in a good company.
Didn't like Detroit too? Like they have trouble with pensions and they went bankrupt and stuff for all these pensions. People, believe they would have a nice pension at their retirement, and all of a sudden tell you, "Hey, no, you don't." Sorry, guys.
Right. Because what happened was back in the days when those pensions were created, they had to be funded at 100%. So the money was in an account somewhere drawing interest. But then most of the cities, as the burden of those pensions grew higher and higher each fiscal year, they wanted to switch to a pay-as-you-go system where they put the money in there to pay the bills of people who are on the pension when the pensions come due. And unfortunately, in some cities like Detroit, they had to declare bankruptcy in order to make that happen. And there are lots of people, who aren't getting the pension that they were promised when they were doing the work.
Yeah, or even like these airlines, like they declare bankruptcy, but then after that they don't have to pay the pensions, and then they just keep going with their company. They just keep going. Yeah, that's like secure.
The bankruptcy law does especially protect corporations, and a lot of corporations here in America have gone into bankruptcy strictly to get out from under contracts that they didn't think were any longer to the benefit of the company.
Right.
So it is sad, but for me, I think the thing is just listening to all the stuff that she's done and is up to. It makes me think I need to challenge myself even more, which is probably something that sounds strange coming from me, but especially in the area of workshops and addressing people in person, I think that's the thing I really need to do more of. And to hear her talk about how when she needs to give her business or her bottom line a boost, she has a workshop or she does a talk somewhere that's either a paid workshop or has a paid product or service at the end as a purpose for being there. And I think that's the one thing, I really need to push myself more in 2017. And I guess the other thing is it's interesting how important books are and will continue to be as a marketing tool. I didn't really think about books for employees until I got to talking to her, because I understand why a business owner would want a book or why a coach would want to write a book. But until she put it that way, that having written a book is credibility for an employee in a interview situation or something like that. That was something I had never thought of that way.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. She's also before her time. She started a podcast in 2006. That's like, wow. Back then, the podcasts weren't prevalent, No,
they weren't. That was even before Blog Talk wasn't even really a big thing at that time, was it? I mean, 2006, over a decade ago?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. All right. So, you got any plugs, Max?
Let's see. First off, I need to thank everybody who has donated to our Patreon page, where they can go and make contributions of any amount from $1 on up and get some nice free perks for supporting the podcast and the network and helping us by contributing to the production costs and keeping us going. The Creative Magic Store over at frederickbuy.com, where you can purchase both of my books, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success, or It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, An Easy to Follow Guide to Weight Loss Success. And I'm currently participating in a competition to win a $25,000 grant through the San Francisco Lighthouse for the Blind and what they call the Holman Prize. And you go to holmanprize.org/candidates and vote for my video to help me get to the next round so that I can get the $25,000 and put it towards my speaking tour and traveling so I can get out there and meet more of our listeners in person.
Awesome. Also, we're looking for new hosts for the Creative Magic Network. Yeah, so thank you for those who did apply. Receive a few emails here and there. So, and if you're mission driven, if you're looking for positive message to spread, and you want a hand into the podcast world, you can check us out. Become a host at frederickbuy.com. Frederick with a C, buylikebabai.com. Also, if you're an Amazon shopper, hey, you can use our Amazon links at frederickbuy.com, and it helps us cover production costs at no additional cost to you, no hidden fees, no nothing. So you can use our Amazon link in the sidebar at frederickbuy.com for all your online shopping, and bookmark it to find it easier. All right, we got to ride off into the sunset, Max.
All righty. Well, thanks again for another great show and helping me out, Frederick.
Awesome. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, and love. Bye-bye. You've been listening to What's Your Excuse with Max Ivey, known around the world as the Blind Blogger. For more information, you can go to theblindblogger.net or frederickbuy.com. That's Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com.